Hello, this is Paula. This is the Common Book Show, and I'm here today. We've got two people on Zoom, which is very exciting. I've got Richard here in the studio. I've got Celeste with that fabulous piece of art behind her, and we've got Paul Dragem. He is our resident photographer.
Paul, are you going to be putting up your photos behind you the way you did last time?
No,
I can't.
He can't because he's not on Zoom.
Oh.
Tom says I can't do it.
Yeah, that unfortunately we'll have to figure out how.
So that's
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
You can hold up some photos.
I mean, no. I can show my screen, my whole screen. It lets me do that, but I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could do
I like
that.
the idea. I like the Zoom because I can put the background.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah.
that is nice. That's a nice feature. So here we are. We're starting the show. I am neck deep in Greek mythology, and I'm just fascinated by the patricide of the early Greek myths.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Uranus being killed off by his son Kronos. You've got Kronos being killed off by his son Zeus. You've got Kronos swallowing children. You've got our Uranus had put them back into Gaia's body. However you want to figure that one out, back into her womb. He didn't want the children around, so he put them back into her womb, which some people think just means underground, right? Because it's Mother Earth. But it is bloody and sick, and Aphrodite is created out of the ocean from the severed penis and testicles of Uranus, and it's like it's pretty gory and weird stuff, but that's what I'm into right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk to Celeste. Celeste, I see that beautiful picture behind you. You said you were going to send me the name of that artist from Chicago. I'm not hearing Celeste.
Did Celeste hit the mute button?
Celeste, did you hit the mute button, honey?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here you are.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right. So.
Oh, yeah. I'll Google it and send it to you because we started talking and I didn't Google it, but I can give you.
That's okay. That's all right. So. What have you been up to, or are you had mentioned early when we started talking that you're not reading anything right now?
No, I'm not reading anything right now. There's been a lot of, human distractions that required attention.
Yeah.
And it hasn't given me, downtime to enjoy reading. And now, I take care of my grandson who is 13 now. So he sucks up a lot of energy.
I bet. So we were also talking about, and I've mentioned this a couple times on the show, if anyone has not downloaded the Libby app onto their phone or their iPad, it is a way, and if you have a library card anywhere, anywhere in the country, it's a way of downloading books for free, either audio books or regular ebooks. And it's fabulous. I listen to books all the time on it, and it's libby.com, and I know I actually have 2 more library cards that I could download because they were when I was living in other places. So I could have access to their archives as well. I think I'll do that. But it's so I'm Paul. What are you working on right now?
Trying to get some pictures on the screen.
Yeah. Well.
No. You know what? The race to audio or audio to video is way off. It's big time delay there, but
you have a time delay on your end?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see.
Yeah, anything that you're saying is like 5 seconds later, so it's kind of weird.
That's I know that is kind of distracting. So you're still in the States?
Yeah, I'm working on Well, I've got some other medical things going on in my life, so I might be here a little longer than I want to be, but I'm already here a lot longer than I want to be, but I'm scheduled to leave on December 10th.
Yeah. Have you been
So,
have you been looking? Have you been photographing anything in particular since you've been here?
oh yeah, I go out. I've been to Rhinestein Park and
Oh,
I
I
did
love
some
it.
fall
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah.
And I've been down to the waterfront, small boat harbor. I wanted to put the pictures up, but obviously that's not going to happen. So,
Well, I'm sorry that
um,
that's not happening, but we'll figure out a way for you to share those.
If you Facebook message a photo to me, I can put it on the screen.
well, some of the ones that I already sent you, you can put up.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So Richard will look at that and we'll try to
Look at this. Look at this beautiful photo that he put up.
Yes.
Wow. Where? Oh, is that?
That's Rhinestein.
Is that? Or
Yeah.
is that? Oh yeah, Rhinestein is the other one. I remember now. That's beautiful. That
Isn't that nice?
you got a really nice light there. What time of day was that?
It was later in the evening.
It's really.
I don't know. I somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 4 o'clock or so, 3 o'clock.
He usually
somewhere in
gives me the time here.
Were you able to see the pink water lilies when they were?
November 15th, 4 p.m.
Yeah, you were able.
there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those they only bloom up until noon, so you got to be an early bird to get there to see them. They start.
I have some nice pictures.
They start closing up.
of those.
Oh wow! Look at the
that's-
sky.
So the wind and the sand was blowing on the beach. So I was right on the beach, and I was worried about my camera because I was just getting blasted with sand.
Yeah, I know.
And,
That's
so that's why it kind of looks hazy when you look at the cityscape because it's all the
it
wind
was
and
the
sand blowing
thing that
off the water.
actually that's a nice look, and the thing that really impresses me about that is the sky. And I tell people all the time that one of the things I missed when I lived in New York City was the big sky in Buffalo, because in New York City you have to look up to see the sky.
Yeah.
or be on a roof of a building or something.
Right,
yeah.
right. You don't see big skies like that, and I even
No.
driving over here. Well, not this time of year because it's dark, but driving over here and along the waterfront, and every time I do it, the sky is different. There's different kinds of
Right.
clouds. It's pretty impressive. But those are two beautiful
Oh, yeah.
shots, Paul. You've always had.
Oh,
Yeah.
But
thank you.
yeah. So Richard, I know you always keep a list. All I had to talk about today was my mythology. So what's on your list today?
What are the thoughts of the people on this panel about cancel culture? I mean, do you think it's a good thing when someone gets canceled?
Oh no.
I mean, do you think, like some people think, there should be no more canceling? Because I found a very gray area.
Yeah, I think first of all, I don't agree with everybody, and I think that there's some people who there's a difference between free speech and hate speech. Hate speech should not be tolerated, but you still, even if it's something that I think is abysmal, you still have a right to think that, and there's no reason for a person to be canceled. So, do we know who just walked in, or? So anyway, I think it's sad when we can't talk. There can't be two sides and have a conversation anymore. I don't know. What does everyone else think?
Well, let me tell you about this story. Let's wait for our guest to get here. He's in the bathroom.
Is it James? Okay.
Oh, it's perfect. It's a perfect story for James.
All right. So let's go back to Celeste. Celeste, do you have any thoughts on cancel culture?
Well, first of all, I struggle to understand how that evolved as a thing, right? And somehow we've managed to coin these things that they become part of how we engage one another. Like the use of the word woke.
Yeah.
And somebody somewhere says it often enough, and then they start strapping things to it. And I feel the same way about cancel culture. Somebody made that up and then started attaching things to it, and then we started to buy into it, I guess, is the I mean, I never did, because if I don't understand something, I'm just not going there with it. And I think your point about being able to agree to disagree is part of an elegant past, if you will, because as it stands right now, if we don't agree with one another, then it turns into, and I won't say this about everybody, but I certainly will say that it certainly has more harsh outcomes than we would like to think. And, and I'll turn this table a little bit, because when you mentioned the harshness and the violence of the mythology that you're participating in, learning about, that has a lot of that in there. And as we were talking, I clicked on who was the first being to ever exist. And the response was, in the creation myth of Greek mythology, was chaos.
Yeah, chaos is, and it's undefined. Actually, it's supposed to be a being, but it's undefined.
Yes, the gap between heaven and earth is what is the little piece that I read, and I think that that's part of that trickle down into the blame game and self-righteousness, and now we're into the soundbite culture where facts are no longer friends. I came up in an era where facts were the facts, whether you like them or not. They are what they are, and then you have to deal with it. So I think cancel culture, somebody needs to start anti-cancel
right.
culture.
It's like being exiled. It's like in the old world, people were exiled from everyone they knew and everything they cared about. And that was worse than death. That was a worse punishment than death. And now we're facing, and even comedians can't joke about.
Well, that's what this little story is about.
Okay. James, are you going to join us? Okay, well, Richard wanted to tell this story with you and we've already set you up. We set you up. Okay, so I think it's a setup again, James, but let's find out. We're still getting. Okay, here we go.
There he is.
There we are.
Hello there.
So, James, this is Celeste and Paul. Paul, right? You've met Paul. So, go ahead, Richard.
Okay, so here's the thing. All right. So we're talking about cancel culture. All right. Mm-hmm. I see it as an extension of the boycott. So you remember the Montgomery bus boycott?
Yeah.
Yes.
People used it almost like, hey, we're consumers. We're going to use the power of being a consumer against you. Mm-hmm. All right. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing when consumers say,
"Oh no, it's not."
Yeah, we don't like what you said, so we're not going to buy your product.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So Netflix has a comedy special, and this comedian does a show. Mm-hmm. This is one of his jokes that people are now writing to Netflix saying, we're thinking about unsubscribing to your service because you put this comedian on. Now, this is one of his jokes.
Okay.
I was in a restaurant with a friend. We noticed our female server had a black eye. We wondered, why would the restaurant have a server with a black eye that everybody would get to see the black eye. Why didn't they just put the server in the kitchen until the black eye goes away? I thought about it and I said, well, when you're in the kitchen, you have to cook. And if she could cook, she probably wouldn't have the black eye.
Wow. That's pretty harsh.
That's harsh.
That's a harsh joke with the woman as the butt of it. Okay, so let's think about this. I don't think it's funny.
What do you think about the people who are writing to Netflix saying, you're promoting a very harmful idea in society?
Were all of his jokes of that nature?
I don't know.
No,
I don't know.
You don't have to like a joke. You don't have to like all the things that a person says. See, I think that falls under, even though it's harsh, I think it falls under free speech.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Celeste. Do you think that?
No, you know what? When I heard it, I had a little chuckle there because here's what, and then you know what, and here's what I'm saying to that. We don't know who's writing to Netflix asking. It could be people who have been impacted or affected in some way by domestic violence. Mm-hmm. But we've emerged out of, if you want something really misogynistic and look at Doris Day movies. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Oh my God. Speaking of Doris Day, not Doris Day, but speaking of movies.
Yes.
I had a group of friends over. We were going to watch a musical last night, and the musical Holiday Inn, which I thought it was the one with Bing Crosby, and it was the one from the 50s. I thought it was the one from the late 50s. It was the one from the 40s, and there were several scenes where they were performing in blackface.
Yes.
And I was like, holy shit. and it was and we had the conversation, the people that were there, we said, this used to be normal. This used to be a normal thing, and look how far that we've come, at least in this portion.
Yeah.
And so it was a very strange movie for us to watch.
Yeah. And I think that's that part of that evolution. And he made, just like we talk about chick flicks, he made a guy joke. And I think that one of the things that I would like us to think about in our culture is when is somebody really being harassed and demeaned, and when is a guy just being a dumbass, right? Yeah. And there's a difference. And I think that there's no perfect people, and women, I think, in their own way, can be just as guilty. Oh, because
I agree.
Could have turned into a penis joke if it had been a female, right?
And what about all the sitcoms where the wife is smart and the husband's a dumbass? Yes. those are awful. Though I don't know why anyone finds them funny, and so it's the same. It's just a different side of the coin.
It's a different side of the coin, and I think I'm going to stick with it. Just depends on who. We tend to be guided by extremes. Extreme on the right, extreme on the left. And, maybe it's these extremes who are writing, or persons who've been impacted or know someone who's been impacted. Some people just want to complain about it. And I say save your salt for when it's really, really needed. Yeah, because otherwise every situation gets to be, the boy who cried wolf. Yeah. And then when there's a real problem, people are, reticent to address it because they're like, oh, we heard that a million times and it wasn't anything. And then it really is something and nothing happens.
Yeah. Everyone becomes desensitized. Richard, what were your thoughts about that?
I think that the people who are saying, I'm thinking about unsubscribing,
Yeah.
it's their right to do that.
It's the right, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And if Netflix decides to pull the special or not hire this guy anymore, the only reason that they're doing it is because they think it's going to cost them money.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's for sure. What else is?
That's
what else?
another story. Yeah.
That's a whole commercialism thing that we can't. We have no control over that.
And it made me think about how sometimes in a capitalist society, you could do, like a corporation could pull this special, or tell this guy we're not going to hire you anymore, like they did with Louis C.K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there were some bad things going on with him, though. It wasn't just a joke. Yeah.
He didn't do any of that stuff on stage.
Neither did Bill Cosby.
Which is the point. Does he pack the theater? Do the people laugh? Do they pay their money?
I don't agree. If there's something going on, if people are being abused, if somebody's being knocked out and sexually assaulted, I think that person needs. Well, he was in prison.
And
so.
you will choose not to buy the ticket. And you will choose not to watch the show.
But he was in prison. So if he wants to go back out on the road now, that's fine. I mean, he's paid his debt to society, but he was arrested and put in prison for that.
Well, I think the point, and I think that's a very interesting point, because you have to, we need to, separate the man entertainer or woman entertainer from how they behave off of that. Now, Cosby, who I was a huge fan.
Oh, me too. And
right.
I still find his humor funny. I mean, I could listen to an album and still laugh at his humor. Unfortunately, that has been tainted by his acts.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's unfortunate. But I say, stripping him of his honors and all the rest of that, he earned that through talent. Because one of the people who did some things that were really testy, and they would never think to do anything in terms of taking him away, is Robin Williams. Robin Williams was brilliant, but he had several moments and times where he would make fun of persons with disabilities.
Yeah,
as did Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah, but that's comedy. That's comedy. I mean, if people get offended over comedy, you go to a comedy show and they bring up things. I mean, it's there for fun, and a lot of times the comics, they'll say, "Hey, this is all a joke. Don't take it serious." And if you take it serious, then you shouldn't be there in the first place.
Yeah, well, I can see your point, Paul, but I mean. We live in a weird time because things that used to be normal, things that a comic could go up on stage and say all kinds of outrageous things about a woman's body or somebody who was disabled. Our culture has shifted. So, do you go back in time and say, oh, we're no longer going to listen to this person because he made these jokes, or
absolutely not.
Right? Or do we go forward and say, okay, that was then. You can't go back and rewrite history. It was no. I mean, okay. Was it ever truly okay? Probably not. But the thing is, it was a different. It was a different era. I mean, the stuff that went on in the Roman Empire, but do we discount the entire Roman Empire because they were doing really horrible things to everybody?
Entertainment was let them get eaten by lions.
Right, so, exactly.
I mean, obviously, so as time goes on, I mean, we evolve and hopefully to have a better society, but I don't believe in destroying like history and anything that should still be, but just don't have to acknowledge it like they did before.
Well, so
anything that's historical
and that gets back to what we were talking about, Celeste, with the slavery thing and how it's being obfuscated. Is that the right word? How do I say that word? Yeah, and that instead of just going back and saying, okay, yes, this happened, and it was a horrible thing in our history, but let's go forward and let's move on to something. But we have to acknowledge it, because
Exactly.
the same thing, right? The same thing with any other part of history or any other person. So,
have any of you guys ever downloaded the comics on Dry Bar? No.
It's comics, dry
Yeah,
bar. It's called.
there's a thing,
Okay.
and I think, and I'm not sure, there are these retreats, and I feel like they might be somehow faith-based or something, and Dry Bar maybe because there's no alcohol.
Oh, right.
Right? But those...
Dry bar.
Huh?
Yeah.
I didn't...
No, you said it when a dry bar. I thought you were talking about something else. but
Yeah,
you're,
okay.
Oh, yeah, no.
alcohol.
And but these, I one of these popped up on my Facebook, and I, said, let me see what this is. I was screaming hysterically, laughing at these comedians, and they were not taking pot shots at anything except their own life circumstances. How is a way to put that, and
Right.
each one was different.
Right.
And I listened to about 4 of these people, and then it made me think that these are artists who had made a conscientious effort to be hysterical,
Uh-huh.
and they might have had a left turn here, a left turn there, but it wasn't offensive.
Right. They were able to, there's comedy that's not
Right.
offensive.
Right.
That's
Right. And part of what Bill Cosby used to do, he called himself a humorist. And it was, again, sort of self-centered.
right.
I saw 3 Native American women comedians, because, they're celebrating Indigenous Peoples Month.
Right.
And it was the same way with them. They were making comments and commentary that were very specific to them, that was hysterical in their community. I thought it was funny, too, because I understood a little of it, but not as much as they did. But I think that part of that is I don't want to have my shortcomings exploited. I want to be thought of as equal and not as a tool or something like that.
But it's okay.
And because we're treading these waters, that's what makes that. And we need to be understanding if it's mean-spirited,
Yeah.
or is it something that you can encompass and, point inward or not? If a person is a criminal, they're a criminal, right? And they can be very smart and very talented, and I won't take away your awards, but you do have to pay the price for your crime,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. I agree with that.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, disagreement is one thing, hate speech is another, because it's usually followed up with some sort of action.
And if not by the person, then by somebody who hears it and is
Right.
unstable and takes it and runs with it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with in our society right now, are all these malicious, hateful things that people say
Yes.
that are unhelpful, and I think,
Yeah, but
yeah, go
but in
ahead.
the same respect, people take offense for everything. I mean, if you don't call them by the right gender, or if you don't say the right thing, or
Define
if you say
right
Merry
gender.
Christmas to them, so there's always somebody getting offended about something. And
Right, but-
it's so
right,
blown out of proportion.
The thing is, I think everybody should be, especially when it comes to people who are used to the world in one way. They should get a little bit of a pass.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
If you gender swap Matt's joke, would anybody notice?
If it was a male server with a black eye?
Probably not.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree
I don't
with
agree.
it either. Yeah, and I think
Exactly my point. Liza Schlesinger. Oh God, what's that blonde? Amy Schumer.
Yeah.
And Taylor Tomlinson do complete chunks of their show as misandrous, poetic fireworks, where they're just hitting men and saying stuff that if you gender swap the jokes would get more rage than what you're hearing with Matt Rife here.
Well, if it's about violence, though, violence is one thing. I mean, are they doing jokes where I'm beating up my boyfriend?
Amy Schumer has a joke about raping a guy. Didn't hear about that, did you?
Well, I don't like Amy.
My
Schumer.
point is,
yeah.
my point
Well, I'm sure
is, she
if
did
we
that
heard
joke on Netflix, and you don't know about it.
Well, but I can give another example on one of the he's not on it. He's not on anymore. He's off now. David Letterman, and there's a very sort of brash Italian comedian. I think her first name is Lisa. I can't remember her last name.
Lampanelli.
Rough and tumble.
Lampanelli? Is that
Lisa
what
Lampanelli.
Maybe so.
Okay.
And you know when they come on the talk shows, they're given latitude to do their bits, right?
Yeah, especially
And
late
one
night.
of them said, and one of her jokes was, and she got booed and hissed for this. One of her jokes was, he said, "Oh, how long did it take you to do this and that?" She says, "Oh, not that long. My time was shorter than a to-do list for a black man, shorter than a black man's to-do list." The crowd was livid, right? Now, in the back of my mind, I was laughing, right? But, right?
Yeah.
But I said, "Oh, girl, you said that on TV?" And they nailed her. They nailed her. Shorter than a black man's to-do list, because the implication is stereotypical,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
It just did not
exactly.
work. Yeah. So, because I'm not a big, Netflix person. I think when the audience just likes a person, they let them get away with murder. And I think that's what's happening, because, some of our favorite comedians have said, really off-kilter things. And if someone calls me by wrong name, I don't like it, and I'll ask them to be correct. I don't like being put into a category of, we all look alike category. I think people who have been on the short end of anybody's stick, they don't want to deal with that. And that attitude comes right under the umbrella of white privilege. That's how you feel about that. Like, you got the right to say and do whatever you want about anybody, anytime, and we just got to roll. And no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that applies not only for race, but for gender, and also in that gender, we do have more freedom now to. My aunt was telling me a story. She's 83 years old, and she said I had to tell them what my pronouns were on my when I went to the doctor.
Right.
I didn't even know what they wanted to know. And I said, then it doesn't apply to you. I said, you would know. If it applied to you, you would know.
You would know.
Yeah.
And these are people that
question.
What's that?
The point is, she doesn't know about the question.
She didn't know about the question.
I said she is annoyed.
No,
by
she
the
wasn't
question.
annoyed. She just didn't understand it, and she laughed because she didn't understand it.
When they ask me that question, I tell them I identify as a toaster, and they chuckle about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, let's understand, these are people who have been legislated against.
Yeah.
They've been the government is interfering in their lives. They're not allowed to govern themselves. And that's a problem.
And that's where empathy comes in, because if you can sit back in a quiet space and you can say to yourself, what would it be like to be in the body I'm in, but feel that I'm male? What would that be like? How could I feel normal? How could I be a person who could walk the streets as a female if I really felt male? I mean, you've got to be able to empathize and say, that would be a horrible experience. And why would I make that up? I mean, I wouldn't make it up unless, maybe somebody crazy might make it up. But as a human being, if I really felt like a man, I would want to express that. And that's what's going on. And the other thing is, and I knew this years ago. I worked at Children's Hospital, and it is not as unusual as one might think for a person to be born with both sexes or parts of both sexes, and they make a decision at birth what sex that child should be, and
based on a physicality and not on inner development or what the DNA might.
Based on what stuff is outside. If you could have ovaries and a very small penis, and you are a man, that they will delete the other part of that. Whereas I see people being interviewed now on television, and they say, "Yes, I was born with both sex organs, and they determined I was a girl, but I am not a girl. I am a boy." And
that's a mutation. That's
it's not,
so,
but it happens. It happens more than you would think, Paul. It's not something that's rare.
Yeah, but it happens. It's rare because
it's not.
It's not rare. It's not rare, and it's been happening years and years.
I worked at Children's Hospital, and I would see on my desk time after time after time.
What is the percentage? So if you take the population,
it's not a huge percentage, but there's not a huge percentage of people who are transgender either. You're thinking that there's because it's more visual now, you're thinking it's this huge thing. Richard, can you look up and see what the percentage of transgender people is in the United States? I think it's 2%, if that.
I guess the point is, if it's only two people, you cannot legislate how that person should live and determine to live. You should not legislate what kind of health care they can have. It's none of your friggin' business.
Wow.
And I think that the same privileges that we have as an individual, everybody should be entitled to it. I'm not the master of creation. How you got to be is how you got to be. And whatever it is that you want to do to govern your life, you should be able to do that. That's been the problem. Why did women have to fight to vote? You couldn't vote until 1920 because men said they were too stupid to vote. They didn't understand the voting process.
Oh, not only that, Celeste, but you know what? Before World War I, the majority of people who had secretarial positions, they were considered assistants to an executive. They were men.
Absolutely.
But during World War I, that job was taken over by women because there were less men to do it. And guess what happened? They devalued the idea of being a secretary because it was woman's work all of a sudden. Those jobs were prestigious jobs. If you look at any movies that have to do with somebody from the late 1800s or the early 1900s, their secretary is always a man.
Absolutely. And they were taking care of a lot of important business.
Right, exactly. And that's the same. And I know because I have done support staff, and I know who. Okay, people. Okay. 1.6 million. Okay, and that's out of how many people in the United States?
350
million. Okay, so if I get my thing out and do the math, so
it's going to be like 0.0001%.
Okay, but I guess the point is, what difference does it make?
No, it doesn't.
My point is, right? I mean, like I said, if it's only 2 out of 2 million, what difference does it make?
It doesn't.
You cannot impede and impose.
But that's like saying, if someone has a rare disease, do you think anybody is going to do the research to try to help? Say you have 1 million people and 100 people have this disease. Do you think there's going to be any research done to research that disease?
Well, no, because
Absolutely
all of the research is done based on how they can sell drugs and how much money they can make on that disease.
Exactly.
And that's,
Okay, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a moral responsibility and a human-to-human responsibility.
take care of them, as patients. Right.
And maybe there might be one person out of the whole population who said, listen, there's that one person, and I'm going to try and see what I can do. Just because there's not a lot does not mean that they're less than.
Right. But I think with Paul, you're conflating the value in money to the value in humanity. And you can't do that.
No, I'm not. I'm realistic about what humanity is these days. And so, you see all these things that are going on and all the crazy things that are happening that there's no reason. Well, there might be reasons, but you can't comprehend what's going through someone's head, why they're driving by and shooting kids at schools. These other things that are happening. It's just insane. So
there's a lot of emotional pain in the world right now. We're in a
and it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
We're in a place where the technology is moving faster than our brains can keep up, and it's causing a lot of tension, mental tension. I mean, I'm older. I don't expect to keep up with technology. I was stopped by the touch screen. That was the end of my technology. But but even with younger people, there's so much to absorb, and there's so much information now that there's too much information. It's mind-boggling.
Well, it's what you do with the information, and the problem is people don't know what to do with the information.
Yeah, and they're teaching. They're starting to talk about teaching critical thinking for technology in schools, and I think it's time.
Well, and I think we can sort of measure.
The AI is right now.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
The AI intelligent software and stuff that's out now. I mean, you might as well not even be a photographer, because you can create an image, and there it is. You wouldn't know it if it was real or not. And the same thing with, like, say, actors. Actors are going to be falling by the wayside. There won't be actors anymore. Another 20 years, everything will be AI generated. They might use their voices and things like that, but it's not going to exist. It'll just all be computerized.
We're going to be able to watch some of that develop, but I don't think we'll be here for the worst of it. Anyway.
Well, I think ultimately at some point, the pendulum will swing the other way, because places. Let's think about Japan for a moment, and Tokyo, the largest, most dense metropolis on the planet. Boom! It is Tokyo.
Okay.
China.
And their technology is extraordinarily advanced, more than ours. But they have not had 500, 600 shootings since January.
Well, because they don't have guns.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's how you manage your society and how we manage our society.
Well, how do you have that information that there hasn't? I mean, there might have been not shootings, but I'm sure as hell bet there was killings.
No, not like here.
Not like no.
How do you know that?
No.
Where do you? How do you?
Because there's statistics.
Where's your
There's news. There's news and statistics, and
you can access information just the same. You can access that information the same way we access our own information.
You can only access what China wants you to access.
We're not talking about China.
I'm talking about Japan.
China's a whole different thing.
I'm not even going, and I've been to China. I have been to China, and I can tell you that's a whole nother story over there. But Japan is what I'm talking about.
And Japan's an open society, so
it's an open society. It's high tech. It's ahead of us in a million different ways, and they don't worry about their kids going to school. So it's how do we manage our society, and how do we say our society, how we as Americans or just people living in the same space, how we need to respond to one another. How do we need to deal with
these days? Everybody feels entitled. Like everybody's entitled to whatever it might be, and so that's what's wrong with society. Everybody thinks they're entitled, and I think.
Well,
that's what's
everybody
wrong.
is entitled to a certain degree.
Okay, so it says
entitled to
discharge of
the pursuit of
Nine.
happiness and everything
Nine.
else that you're entitled to. But I'm saying, like
How many
I don't want
stabbings?
to get into it. I don't want to get into the politics of it.
Yeah,
but,
well, there were nine. There were nine
The kids
people.
are entitled.
There were 9 people that were killed in Japan with guns last year.
But how many stabbings?
You cannot stab on the same rate as a AR. What is it? AR-15? Is that what the name of that gun?
Yes.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
Well,
The
what's that
intent
got to
is
do
the
with
same.
It's not a crime
yes.
ridden.
All right,
Let's not
but
try to
but
take,
not the result.
it's not, I think the point being is that it's not a crime riddled culture.
Yes. And,
Even though it's the most,
excuse me.
But if you
highly
wanted to-
rated, highly populated major city, more so than New York and LA, it does not have the crime legacy that we have. It just doesn't, because they have a higher level of expectation on how people should be treating one another.
But they do have their own.
But
their
see,
own
when I'm in
problems.
Buffalo, I can buy maple walnut ice cream. When I'm in South Carolina, I have to be satisfied with pecan praline. Because I can't buy maple walnut in South Carolina.
I'm so sorry. You know what you could do? You could take a dish of vanilla ice cream. You could get some walnuts and you could pour maple syrup over that. And man, does that sound good.
Or keep a freezer. Take some with him as
Yeah.
Take his
You can
maple
get
walnut fix with him.
You can get a freezer for your car that plugs
Yeah.
into the car. Because when I was in Mexico, there was a guy and he had a freezer in his car that plugged into his cigarette lighter, and he kept frozen food in there. So
There you go.
yeah. We just
Take it
saw,
with you,
we
boo.
just
So
saw
you
the
make sure you
crowd.
have it whenever you want it.
I own one of those, and I used to use it to bring
Well, there
back
you have
cheese
it.
from Wisconsin. But the point is, you cannot buy a gun in Japan. So if you have the intent that someone on a Saturday night in New York City might have, and you're in Japan, you might actually have to get your hands dirty by getting close to the person.
Right, and that's why those kind of guns should not be available.
They
Accessible
use
like
blow
that.
darts, blow dart. Poison blow darts. Whatever it takes, they're going to get it done if they want to get
Okay.
it done.
Exactly.
All right, so
I think the key is that they don't want to more so.
well,
I think that's the bigger
I think
key.
there's
That
a
wouldn't be
different.
human.
Yeah, there's a different. Well,
Yeah, it would be. I think it's unnatural for us to prey upon each other like that for sport and for other reasons.
Yeah,
I think people
I don't know
naturally
if
are
anybody
tribal
preys on anybody
and
for sport. I mean,
well, it's.
I never heard. You don't
It's
prey on anybody for sport.
no, it's not for sport, but it's
she said
it's
sport,
very
so.
it's very.
yes, I did say sport. I did
Yeah.
say sport. And when you walk into a Sandy Hook, when everybody in there is 36 inches tall and open fire, that's
What else-
That's,
what else is
that,
there?
that, that's what there was no reason for that. There was no
Well,
reason for that.
Well, yeah, I think the point she's making is she's using sport as a default for there couldn't possibly be another motive to kill children.
Well,
Yeah.
they're insane. They're
Yeah,
nuts. you
right.
know?
I know, and
Yeah.
and there's a lot of that going on. Listen,
Yeah.
okay, let's go to Richard's got a list, and we haven't been able to get to his list in previous shows because we're off. With this was a great tangent, but let's get to one more
I
item.
do want to mention something that Celeste brought up about Japan.
Okay.
They embrace technology more than other countries.
Yes.
There are men in Japan who have girlfriends that are not real. They are just computer simulations on their phone.
Uh-huh.
And do you consider those people mentally
And blow up
ill?
dolls.
Mentally ill, or do you say this is another way of expressing their loneliness, and it's their way of staying mentally healthy?
If it helps their lonely, if they're lonely and they have no other options, it may be helpful. I don't know. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, what do you say, James, about men in Japan who fall in love with their apps?
I think that they are doing the best they can with what they have, and it's just really funny how the women who don't want those guys have a problem with them having that option.
Oh, I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a
You
problem
are
with
not
it.
one of
Didn't
those
they do a movie about
You are
that?
not a woman. No.
No, you are not one of the. If
No,
you go
no, I know,
online,
I know.
you will hear women whinging about men should not have the possibility of doing this.
Yeah, I don't agree with that because I know that
They should spend their money
there's
on
so
an
much
OnlyFans
isolation and there's so much isolation and
Yeah.
I think that people are not. We shouldn't be isolated.
No. I think they did a movie about that, right? Didn't they do a movie?
Yeah, was it called She or Her
There's
or
been
something?
several.
What was it?
There was a movie. I think it was called She or Her, and
Or something. And and it was just this thing that
Cherry
Richard's talking
2000.
about, where the man was in fascination
Simone.
with
yeah,
an artificial
right, and
personality.
That was actually was a good movie.
yeah, it was a good movie. I liked
So
it.
he fell in love with this machine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you're by yourself,
yeah. If you're by yourself,
and that's the only companion you have, then sure.
I don't.
Yeah.
I
And
think-
then there was the Robin Williams movie where he was an android and eventually
Oh yeah,
evolved.
he
Yeah.
right. I remember that. That was pretty good too.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that, Richard? Do you think that it's wrong or right to be able to have? How about the robots that are going to be generated soon? The love bots.
Hey, like Westworld. Remember the movie Westworld?
Yeah.
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 You mean
They're
there
gonna take
will?
over.
You're Paula. You're saying that in the near future there will be robots that you can actually buy that have sexual genitalia.
Yeah, that you'll be able to have sex with and a relationship.
So it's like
They could have
an
them
evolution of the sex doll.
programmed to your liking. I mean, that might work for some people who are difficult to satisfy. I mean, not sexually. I don't mean it like that, but some people who have specific.
Well,
needs.
you know, it would be the ultimate advancement of the Stepford wife. You have a Stepford wife and a Stepford husband. It wouldn't have the evil thing behind it where you were knocking them off, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would enjoy having a relationship with a machine, but I don't see why other people shouldn't enjoy it if it's available.
How about you, James? Could you ever see yourself having a relationship with a robot?
Why not?
You're already,
Women buy more sex toys than men. It is so crazy that they whinge and moan about the idea that somebody might get a real doll and made it with an AI program and be happy enough to delete all their dating apps and never, ever get Me Too'd at the office for saying, "Excuse me, you dropped this."
Yeah.
well, all I can say is that it would be I like the challenge of somebody with their own personality and mind to challenge me when, in conversation. I don't want, if I wanted a yes person, I dated someone like that and he got on my nerves.
But here's the thing, Paula. As a woman, dating for you is saying yes. Dating for a man is much more complicated than that.
I do recognize that it is more difficult for a man. I do recognize that because you do have to put yourself out there and you put yourself on the line and you have to ask. I have never been very good at being the aggressor. I've never been. I mean, I think I just come generationally. That's how I've been.
But the most aggressive a woman ever has to be is, "Hello."
That's true. That's true. That is true. But the thing is, I feel that men do have a harder time, and I don't know if I could be rejected as many times as most men have to be rejected before they're accepted.
Well, and we haven't reached a time, and although I have to say younger women are more comfortable
Yes,
with that.
I think so too. And I think
They're
good.
very cool about, hey, dude, Can you talk to me? Can we have some coffee? Here's my, so it depends on how you were primed and prepared to navigate the relationship.
Yeah, I think the women that are coming up now are much more comfortable with that than I ever was.
But that's because they know they're in competition
with other women.
Yes.
No,
well,
robots.
we've always been.
I got what to say. What's new about that? But I think what happens is up until very recently, with the feminist movement, you were just not allowed to be that. And then you were thought unworthy or damaged goods even Shakespeare, Taming of the Shrew, listen, that particular story was about, the behavior of women.
Yeah.
If you look at the film Orlando, it was an incredibly beautiful, stunning, epic story. That the life as a male, and through these episodes that Orlando had, evolved to a woman, and at one point he lost everything that he had because he had made the transformation into a woman during a period of time when women were not allowed to own property, couldn't earn money. So he had to go through other evolutions to make that full transformation.
Yeah. I don't know that movie. I'll have to check that out.
It's gorgeous. It's a beautiful movie. It's not, it's not hard to understand. I say beautiful because physically, scenically, the photography, the staging, the costume. It's a wonderful movie, but it's very thought-provoking about, gender.
Is this person willingly changing into a woman or unwillingly?
It happens. Orlando Bloom is Orlando. So when there's a traumatic moment, a traumatic period in their life, they fall into this deep sleep. Yeah, there we go. And when Orlando wakes up, he's evolved into a different character. Huh. And so it starts out from being a young man poet. Right. And it's over hundreds of years. It's not over, a 5-year period.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's
right.
Yeah.
It's a time kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it ends with a full transformation as a parent.
Huh.
It's an amazing story.
It sounds interesting. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. Sit down and have a glass of wine.
What do we have here, Richard? This is
I was going to look at the trailer.
Oh, okay. All right, so we've got a couple more minutes left. Where were we? We were bouncing again. I've lost track of the flow of this conversation.
I think that some people are conflating oppression and accountability.
Excuse me? I don't. You're going to have to explain that one. That's something. Oppression and accountability. How could you conflate those two things?
Yeah.
Because some people seem to think that being held accountable is oppressive as opposed to just a matter of course as to how humans do things. So, for instance, it's considered to be oppressive that a woman who is loose, so to speak, is held accountable by not having the options that a woman who's not loose has. And
well, what about men in the same situation? How can you say that? How can you say that a woman loses her options because she has more sexual partners than, and then say a man is okay, depending on if he's had 100?
Because there's a difference between who the market for the product is.
Not a product, person.
It is the same thing. It is the same thing.
No.
Because what people don't understand is that what women want from men is different from what men want from women.
Oh, absolutely.
But why? Why would it matter? Why would it matter? So, okay. So I've got a couple seconds here. So my friend wanted to get married. He was looking for a wife, and he met this woman, and she slept with him the first night. And he came back and he said, Paula, I can't marry this woman because she had sex with me the first night, and that means that she does that with everybody. So I said, so what you're telling me is you want a
old way of
wife
thinking.
who doesn't like sex. That's what you're telling me.
No. No.
You
How
gave him
long ago did this happen, though? What era was this?
This was only about 15 years ago.
you gave him good
I mean,
counsel.
it's a big difference,
No.
No, men have created a double standard. They've
Yes,
created
exactly.
a double standard. And the thing with women is that we've
Women have
never
no
been
part in
able to self-define.
Yeah.
Our standard of beauty has been set by men. Our standard of value has been set by men.
Because men
Our
want butterfly lashes, tattoos,
All right,
piercings through your
we're-
nose.
Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Some men do.
We're
Some men
out
do.
of time. Okay.
The human race was never supposed to be a monogamous society.
Well, that's possible. That is possible.
No, it's definitely
But
possible.
I will say this right now, we have to go because we're out of time. So thank you so much, everybody. Celeste, it was great to see you. Paul, it was
Glad to
great
be
to
here.
see you. And of course, as always, James, you are my favorite person to argue with. Okay.
That's
And-
what I'm here
Discussion.
for.
And Richard,
No-
thank
no
you.
argument,
Oh, and of
discussion.
course, my son Tom on drums. All right. Bye-bye.